5. The disciples had experiences, and I'll say this the way that even the critics will be able to accept it, I think. The disciples had experiences which they believed were literal appearances of the risen Jesus. They thought Jesus appeared to them.
Okay, so even if these disciples existed and they thought Jesus appeared to them, I mean, group psychosis or group hallucinations are not all that uncommon. You need to be able to differentiate, the group psychosis or group hallucinations from actual good claims. I mean, you would need contemporary records outside of the faith, outside of this group that could be hallucinating themselves. You would need it outside of the group in order to validate it. Like you would need somebody that says, "Hey, look, I saw this guy walking around. He was kind of translucent and shit. He looked like a ghost." Or what we'll in the future call ghosts, what we understand as ghosts, whatnot. He also had these holes in his hands. It's pretty fucking weird with the holes in the hands, because motherfucker wasn't crucified through his hands. They were crucified through his fucking wrists.
6. Because of these experiences, they were transformed from doubters.
Okay, so in this particular one, in 5 and 6, it's anecdotal evidence is what it is. In 5 and 6, what we have is anecdotal evidence of both the disciples and their experiences and how they were changed, and then them being transformed from doubters. That's still like anecdotal evidence, argument from experience, basically, are these last two bullet points. And again, they're not acceptable forms of evidence, even if they were to have existed. There's nothing to validate these claims. So you really need something that has more substantial weight behind it.
They were afraid of their own shadow, so to speak, certainly afraid to identify themselves with Jesus, into bold proclaimers of his death and resurrection. 7. This message was the center of preaching in the early church.
I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with you on this one. There were different styles and information that was being preached in the early first century. I mean, to say that the early first century church all taught the exact same thing is disingenuous as fuck. I mean, you had several different communities that either didn't teach that didn't teach the resurrection of Jesus, that they also didn't teach of a pure Davidic line for Jesus, or they taught a God-centered line of Jesus, and that was the melding of pagan and Christian beliefs. It went from the Jewish Christian kind of belief of Jesus being purely Davidic, and then once the pagans got in there, they wanted to kind of make Christianity their own type deal, and so they had God, Father, Jesus, basically. And so that's kind of to say that the early first century church was going around and preaching all the same stuff, that wasn't really standardized until much later. When they had kind of stomped out the Gnostics, which that's what some of the earliest references that people like this guy gives is, references that state, their own personal beliefs about what happened to Jesus. And those particular documents and those particular people were the ones that set, what was to be believed about Jesus. And then, of course, you got Constantine that comes on. He's just like, well, look, this is what I believe, motherfucker. And so I'm stamping it with the Constantine seal of approval.
Remember, Paul said, of first importance, death, burial, resurrection of Jesus. 8. This message was especially proclaimed in the environs of Jerusalem.
Again, I'm going to have to disagree with you right here, because, in the early first century, like I stated before, there was a lot of different Christian communities that were going around. They all taught different things. Like, for instance, did you know that there's one Christian community that actually taught that Jesus took Mary upon a mountain, pulled a woman out of his side, raped the bitch right there, came in her, and then pulled his cum out and ate it, and said, "This you do in remembrance of me," basically saying, hey, once you come, you got to eat your cum, and that's just how we roll in this particular part of Christianity. That's pretty fucked up, isn't it? I don't see that in the Bible today.
Where Jesus died and was buried just shortly before. 9. As a result of this preaching, the church was born, and it grew.
So as a result of Jesus' preaching, the church was born and it grew. except that it didn't. There are a lot of things that are appended to the Bible, like after the events happened. It's kind of hard for me to believe that, the death and resurrection were always taught in every single Christian community. That's what I'm talking about here, is that, it wasn't always taught in every single Christian community that it was crucified, died, buried, raised, whatever. I mean, that's what we know about it now. That's what a lot of your references outside of the Bible will say is how it happened, because that particular side won out, and they had control of the documents. So, wouldn't you preserve the documents that meet your religion, but then let the other ones, be victims of time and just not preserve them? I mean, see what I'm getting at here is that Christians took over, and then the documents that could have refuted them are gone, like noticeably gone. Like there are several like individual pieces missing out of whole volumes that we just simply don't have anymore, and it's because either they were destroyed, ripped out, or they just fell victim to time.
10. Sunday became the primary day of worship, and that's significant for Jewish believers.
So I don't think that this particular one is a very good piece of evidence. I really don't. I think that, you have to have a lot more substance behind it, because it seems more likely to me that the switch from Saturday to Sunday would be more due to cultural changes and cultural shifts, rather than them being all like, oh, Jesus died on Sunday, so let's have a party on Sunday at church, singing and shit, drinking wine, eating some human flesh. I really don't think that was the deal. I think that it was more like, there were some cultural things. Because like Jewish Christians, they worship both days. They worship the Saturday Sabbath and the Sunday for Jesus. And so, it didn't really get standardized until about Constantine time. But, once Constantine gave him the stamp of approval, that's pretty much all we fucking remember, right? Because Constantine's the boss. Like a boss. So I think it's more probable that there were cultural shifts and cultural influences that changed the date from the Saturday, the Sabbath, to Sunday, the Sabbath. And, also with influences from what they believed about Jesus, I think that all of those things did it not just because, they absolutely knew that Jesus died and was resurrected on a Sunday.
11. James, who had been a skeptic, was converted to the faith when he also believed that he saw the resurrected Jesus.
Again, anecdotal evidence, it's not admissible. Please try again.
And 12. A few years later, Paul was converted by an experience which he likewise believed to be an appearance of the risen Jesus. What I'm saying here...
Hold up. Now, Mr. Preacher Man, I'm gonna let you finish, but first, I'm gonna fuck your faith with a cactus. That's still anecdotal evidence. It's based on experience, and you can't use that. That's not good enough evidence to convince anybody, because I could say anything, and then it's like, oh, well, John said he saw it, so that must mean it's true. That's bullshit. But he's about to break this down into a few points that you can rely on to say that Jesus definitely existed. So let's see what this motherfucker's got to say.
Here is that with the exception of the empty tomb, virtually all critical scholars accept this list as historical, and most of them will even grant the empty tomb.
Alright, dipshit, this is still argument from authority. You can't just say that and expect me to believe it. You need to present evidence in order to do it. Thank you very much.
And if you want to check some of the writings I've done on this, the historical Jesus, and some of the books by others, you can find lists of critical scholars who accept all of these things.
I honestly don't give a shit if all if all of your particular scholars accept them as true. I would expect any real scholar to give me actual evidence to support his claims. And with the fact that he's a scholar and an expert in the field, he should be able to explain it to me enough to where, even if I'm dumb as fuck, I can understand it.
You might say, well, wait a minute. 12, that's not bad. But can we cut this list down? Can we get some more skeptics involved by being even more picky in what we take? All right, I'll arbitrarily reduce this list to say 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. And if I were to reduce this list, I would say something like the following. Jesus died due to crucifixion. The disciples had experiences that they believed were appearances of the risen Jesus. Their lives were transformed because of that, and later a man named Saul of Tarsus believed that he was converted to Jesus by an appearance, a personal appearance of the risen Jesus to him.
How is this list arbitrary again? I really don't know, because you picked points number 1, 5, 6, and 12. Those aren't random picks. It's not like you went, you put them on a wheel and you were like, 1, five. Oh shit, 6. I mean, these are calculated things that you have pointed out here. Not only that, but you started off your response there by saying 4, 5, 6. Well, what are the other 2 that you would pick, motherfucker? Don't mention 6 things that you would consider the core that proves that Jesus existed, and then tease me with that shit like some kind of teasing motherfucker. Don't tease me with that shit just like you're giving me only the tip, man.
These are 4 tough facts that virtually anybody is going to give you. And I think that we can build a case for that central proclamation of the death and resurrection of Jesus based on just these 4 facts alone.
Thank you for joining me today on this Did Jesus Exist? Please, if you will, go down below, hit that like button, also subscribe if this is your first time here and you like this particular conversation. Don't forget to share this shit with your friends, because you know you want to.